Imagine the situation. What would happen if one day a person simply disappeared from someone's life? It is not a question of physical disappearance, but a kind of disconnection, a release from those invisible threads that connect him or her with others. Have you ever wondered what would happen if a person decided to withdraw not because of anger or resentment, but simply because of the need to be alone with himself? Many people don't realize how powerful the effect of distance can be. It seems as if a person's departure from someone's orbit disrupts some delicate balance. It's not just that he or she starts to be missed, it's something more, something deeper and darker that touches the most sensitive strings of the soul. When a person decides to withdraw, he leaves behind an emptiness, and emptiness always causes discomfort. And this discomfort arises not because of what is missing, but because of what this emptiness exposes. And this is where the fun part begins. The absence of a person hurts, not because of who they were to others, but because of what they can no longer project onto them. It is important to realize that what people see in others is not who they really are. In relationships between people, there is often a situation where one person sees in another not his true self, but only a reflection of his own needs and desires. He becomes a kind of mirror in which complexes, hidden aspirations, and expectations are projected. And when this reflector decides to withdraw, those around him or her are faced not with the void created after his or her departure, but with a distorted image of themselves, which he or she had previously maintained. It is worth reflecting on how often one has heard words about one's importance and irreplaceability. However, if you look closely, such statements are often dictated more by the needs of the speaker than by a sincere assessment of the addressee's personality. By distancing himself, a person destroys this convenient illusion, making others experience a gamut of unpleasant feelings: discomfort, anger, guilt, fear. But most importantly, a question arises in their minds that they are afraid to voice. What will be left of me if you are not around? It is indeed disturbing to realize that someone's dependence is based not on love or sincere affection, but on the fact that the person serves as a support that allows them to avoid facing their own problems and contradictions. Unfortunately, this situation is common in human relationships. Human relationships are a complex system of mirrors that reflect our own strengths and weaknesses. But, at the same time, they serve as a kind of crutches that support us in moments of weakness. When a person decides to break the bond and walk away, he or she unwittingly causes those around them to lose their balance and face the truth they have been studiously avoiding. The emotional dependence of these people was not directed at a specific person, but at an idealized image created in their imagination. And that's where the real question arises. What do they experience when that image is no longer there? Some may feel sadness, some may feel disappointment, and some may feel resentment. But the real truth is that they themselves do not know the answer, because the emptiness that arises after leaving has no clear shape. It is not a pain that can be localized, not a wound that can be healed. It is something deeper, instinctive, primal. It is an echo of what they subconsciously tried to hide from themselves. What are the thoughts and feelings that rise up in their minds when a person decides to leave? What shadows awaken in their souls? And why does this decision seem so powerful, causing a storm of emotions and experiences? Today is not about simple things and superficial judgments. We intend to get to the heart of the phenomena that arise when a person makes the decision to distance themselves from others. Let us consider the range of feelings experienced by others, including those that remain unspoken and carefully concealed. The key question is why such a seemingly simple action can expose the most hidden corners of human psychology. The research ahead does not promise to be easy or pleasant. There will be no easy solutions or truths that do not cause discomfort. It is a journey into the depths of human emotion, into areas that many prefer to avoid. However, if the reader chooses to continue, it is an indication that on a subconscious level he or she recognizes. Leaving not only transforms his or her own life, but has a powerful impact on those who cannot imagine their existence without it. It is this complex mystery that we will attempt to unravel. When someone decides to distance himself, an interesting process is triggered. Those around him begin to rethink his image. However, the image they form reflects not so much the real personality of the estranged person, but his role in their lives and, most importantly, what they lose with his departure. When a person disappears from someone's life, those around them begin to create their own versions of their personality in an attempt to fill the resulting void. These interpretations can be far from the truth, as people tend to analyze his actions and motives from afar, looking for patterns that might explain his departure. However, the true purpose of these searches is not to understand the one who left, but to justify their own position. His absence forces them to face an uncomfortable question: how much of their emotional well-being depended on this person? For many, this question becomes unbearable because, in their quest to appear strong, independent, and self-sufficient, they are forced to recognize their dependence on the one who is gone, which is a deeply human, yet extremely uncomfortable truth. And then the process of transforming the perception of the departed begins. People change their opinion of him, not because he has really changed, but because they need to create a version of his departure that is psychologically acceptable to them. In some cases, they begin to idealize him, as if his absence makes him even more valuable and meaningful in their lives. There are people who, when faced with the passing of a person, elevate his image to unprecedented heights, endowing him with qualities that surpass those that he displayed while alive. For them, his presence becomes even more precious in their memories than ever before. Others, on the contrary, tend to demonize the departed, convincing themselves that his decision was dictated by selfishness or even betrayal. Deep down, they find it easier to blame him than to admit that his departure has disrupted their way of life. It is noteworthy that these emotional reactions do not occur uniformly. Each person reacts differently, depending on the role that the departed played in his life. For some, his absence is like an unhealed wound. For others, it is a wound that they thought had healed, but was reopened by his estrangement. And for a few, it is a mirror that reflects their greatest fear: to be alone with themselves. This is where the real difficulty lies. It's not just about how those around you react to a person's departure, but how those reactions are transformed over time. Initially, there may be anger and confusion, but over time the absence becomes more abstract. They begin to wonder if they really knew the person, or if they were simply projecting their expectations and fantasies onto them. The departure of a person from a particular environment or relationship often triggers a gamut of feelings in those around them, with fear of change at the core. People may experience doubt and anxiety as they realize that reality is not meeting their expectations. Leaving becomes not just a physical absence, but a symbol of a change in the dynamics they used to control. Loss of control in turn breeds anxiety and uncertainty. The irony of the situation is that people do not always realize the true reason for their reaction to leaving. In words, the person who left may not have held an important place in their lives, but his or her absence exposes the truth. He or she meant more than they were willing to admit. Leaving highlights the cracks in their emotional structure, the very cracks they had carefully tried to hide from view. The feelings that arise from leaving are often not about the person, but about the need to confront their own fears and complexes. Leaving becomes a kind of test for the relationship that is left behind. It exposes the unpleasant truth that many bonds between people are not based on unconditional love and mutual respect, but on other, less solid foundations. The fabric of human relationships is often interwoven not only with threads of mutual affection and shared interests, but also with more complex elements, such as convenience, power relationships, and hidden needs. When someone decides to break these established patterns, those around them face a loss that goes far beyond the mere absence of a loved one. They lose an entire support system, a reliable point of reference, and a familiar balance that this person may have unknowingly helped to maintain. A legitimate question arises that many prefer to avoid: what is left for these people when that person is no longer around? For some, the answer is obvious. They continue on their path, find new connections, and adapt to their changed circumstances. For others, however, that person's departure leaves a gaping void that they don't know how to fill. This person's presence has unwittingly become an anchor that holds something more, a structure that begins to disintegrate in his or her absence. Paradoxically, the experience of leaving has a profound effect on both parties. It is not only that those around them feel the absence of the person who has left them, but also that the person who has left faces the consequences of his or her decision. However, this is a topic for a separate discussion. For now, it is important to focus on those who stayed, on what thoughts, feelings, and changes this departure causes in them. And it should be recognized that this impact is much more profound and multifaceted than it may seem at first glance. When someone decides to withdraw from the social circle, he or she not only triggers a wave of change in the lives of others, but also becomes the trigger that releases a whole range of previously hidden emotions. Surprisingly, the departure of a person is akin to a sudden roll of thunder, which at first is not heard, but makes the ground shake underfoot. At that moment, even if those around them do not say it out loud, even if they do not admit it to themselves, an irreversible process is triggered in their inner world. The first reaction is usually denial. People convince themselves that the person who left is just busy, that it is temporary, that he will definitely come back. They desperately try to assure themselves that his absence means nothing, that it is just a passing episode. But while they cling to this illusion, somewhere in the back of their minds an uneasiness begins to brew. Underneath, they sense that something has changed, and this oppressive uncertainty, this agonizing unanswered why, like a seed of doubt, slowly germinates in their minds. Had they made some mistake? Were they too demanding? Did they fail to sufficiently appreciate the one who had gone? These questions, like intrusive ghosts, invade their thoughts, and with them comes anxiety. However, there is an aspect that captures the imagination even more. The very fact that a person has left makes those around them rethink their own identity. After all, when people spend time together, their energies intertwine. Their presence leaves a mark. The person becomes part of the lives of others, even if this has never been spoken aloud. And so, when that person leaves, those around them lose more than just their physical presence. They lose a part of themselves, a part of who they have become around him. Recovering that lost part is not an easy task. Suddenly, they have to redefine who they are without him. It is here that something almost poetic manifests itself. Those around them begin to remember the one who is gone, not as he really was, but as they need to remember him. Everyone creates their own version, which corresponds to their personal history, their pain, their understanding of the reasons for leaving. Some idealize the departed, giving him perfect qualities. He was so perfect, so necessary, and I failed to appreciate him. Others, on the contrary, demonize him. He left because he never really cared. And only a few, the bravest, find the courage to face the truth. Perhaps the true needs of others have remained inscrutable. It is at such a moment that the tension reaches a climax, for as they watch their inner torment, the person on the outside becomes an unsolved mystery. Their thoughts are occupied with questions. What are his actions? What is on his mind? Is he experiencing longing? This obscurity is like an unfastened thread that they cannot help but reach for. However, it is not the lack of answers that causes true anxiety, but the loss of control. By withdrawing, the individual disrupts order, and disorder invariably breeds chaos. The irony of the situation is that while they are trying to rebuild their lives without his presence, he himself is going through a similar process. After all, the decision to distance oneself is not just a physical or emotional distancing. It is a show of courage. It is a look in the mirror and an admission. I need space for myself, even if it causes misunderstanding from others. And this, while necessary, can be fraught with heartache. It is worth pausing here because if the reader has reached this point, it means that something in this text has resonated. There are moments in everyone's life when the echo of experiences finds a deep resonance in the soul. Perhaps it is due to the estrangement from loved ones, the feeling of the collapse of the world because of the decisions made, or on the contrary, with the inexplicable estrangement of others and agonizing attempts to understand the reasons. Regardless of the circumstances, it is worth thinking about how much inner balance depends on the outside world, and how much a person is willing to let go in order to find the much-desired peace. If these words have touched the hidden corners of the soul, if they are a reflection of your own experiences, it is suggested to leave a comment with the phrase, "Emptiness does not define me, it frees me." This will become a symbol of readiness for change and liberation from the burdensome shackles of the past. For those who are eager to explore the depths of the human mind and are ready to discuss topics that others prefer to avoid, this channel is open. Here you can find answers to difficult questions and tools for personal growth and transformation. But before leaving this page, it's important to realize another important thought. The decision to leave a situation, despite the pain it may cause, can be a starting point for personal growth for others. Sometimes, the most effective way to help is not to stick around, but to demonstrate that moving forward on your own is possible. Even if it is not obvious at first glance, such a step can be a valuable gift. By staying until the end, the observer witnesses not just reflections, but revelations that can transform perceptions of relationships, decisions made, and most importantly, oneself. Watching events unfold can bring a deep understanding of the dynamics of interpersonal connections and the motivations behind